So there is nothing like unwrapping new presents. So previously on our LS swap,
It's completely gutted.
we took it for a drive, decided that we aren't going to keep the Mercedes drivetrain. We picked up a 06 Silverado off an auction and decided to put that 5.3 iron block with the 4L60 in our car. Now, we really want to boost it, but we had to make sure that there's room for it. So, before anything else, a drive fit in the engine showed lots of room. We got a reverse sump oil pan to fit in between the cross member and the steering, and now it's time to widen the tunnel on it and make sure that that transmission fit. Figured out how to get the RPM gauge working and the factory speedometer. Here we go. So one more truck for some parts. I need the throttle body, I need the torque converter, I need the crank sending gear, the AC compressor for my truck, and then some other random stuff, wiring harness. And it had power seats, which my other truck didn't, so we're gonna take the pads and the cloth off of that seat, put it on these power seats. The doors look pretty good and the hood looks pretty good. I'll probably sell that and paid scrap for it, bring it to the scrapyard this afternoon, get my money back, and then make some money on the doors and whatever else. So I also need the alternator for my truck because we're using the alternator on the Mercedes. Yeah, and somebody did some fancy Bondo work here. That's pretty impressive. That guy needs an award. But I just got to grab the engine transmission out of it, and then we'll load that one up. I don't want to look at this one. Might have some good parts on it yet. The back window is heated, and the windshield is still good. But regardless, I'll probably just scrap it because I don't feel like looking at these ugly things for that long. I think they gave me an empty tank. That sucks. But I don't really need anything other than the transmission here. We'll take the mounts off and the exhaust, and we are laughing. Here we go. So there's nothing like unwrapping new presents. Better than Christmas. Oil sump and a front sump oil pan with a built-in baffle for doing jumps. I thought I'd have to go with a GTO oil pan, but they make these for drag cars. So wonderful, it looks very nice. This will determine how low I can put the engine and how far forward and back. And nicely there's the sway bar in the front, but this is still back 2 inches from the front of the engine, so the sway bar will come close, but if it doesn't hit, it doesn't hit. So then that will determine where I can put it forward to back. Now the only thing that kind of concerns me is there's no mount for the bottom of the bell housing on the transmission here. So I'll probably cut the back of the oil pan off and stick that on the back here, and then the steering will all end up right here, and then I might even still put a brace front to back or kind of an X or something if I can get away with that, because it's thick enough aluminum, it could be structural, so we'll worry about that later. But for now I'm gonna throw it in and see where my engine ends up. Oh, and it was 170 bucks, which is a really good deal, I think, for a custom-made oil pan. Good deal. Here we go. Now would you look at that? It's your bell housing, and then the steering, and then the frame, and then the sway bar. That looks like it is just meant to be there. That is incredible. I love it. So we'll make those engine mounts. That's basically where it's gonna go. Lots of room for the rad, not so much room for the intercooler, so we gotta figure that out. And then the back of the engine comes out past the steering, and I gotta make sure that the steering has room to go up, because as the idler arm and the pitman arm turn, the steering will go up. But I think I got enough there, and I gotta make sure that doesn't hit the back of the engine. But look at all the room I've got there. I can run the exhaust very nicely right around the back of the engine there, and right over top of that steering box there. So that's coming together really nice. Take a look at the engine at the top here. It's sitting in there much lower now, much nicer. And
even though the exhaust is tight. I might actually have to go up with the engine just because of that steering box. That is, oh no, that should be just fine actually. That is beautiful. That's sitting in there nice and low. That'll give the transmission lots of room to go forward, and basically that's where it's gonna sit, right there. I am really happy with that. So here we go.
Okay, transmission time. This is the Mercedes, this is the 4L60. The 4L60 is slightly bigger than the Mercedes. Hopefully it'll hold up to the 5.3 in front of it. We've got to figure out the speedo. Now the Mercedes was driven by a mechanical gear. This little gear right here was pressed onto this right here, and it was kept from turning by little pegs that went into these holes here. And then on the outside, on the actual tunnel, there's a mechanical little gear that spins and drives the cable there. Now, my brother-in-law is a machinist, so he machined a new collar for me and put little pins on it. I don't know if you can see that little pin. Keeps that gear from spinning. And now it's a 1 thou all the way interference fit, so it'll slide on the output shaft of the 4L60. I'm going to leave this as a magnetic drive with a just a magnet, and that'll drive the electronic speedo. I think there's nothing else in this tailstock, and I've got room for this gear right here. What I'm going to do is cut this section out and just cut a slot in the output shaft, probably right on this side, angling down, so that the gear will be poking in through the side of the housing there. I've got an old output shaft, so I can put this in there. I can throw the gear on temporarily right there, cut a hole in there, and just get my buddy to weld that housing piece right in there. I know you can buy output housings with a mechanical drive on it. The problem is that the Mercedes has a pretty specific output for this. Most of them are the screw-on type with threads on the outside. This is a little push-in thing that locks with a bolt in there. So those output housings on eBay are about 400 bucks. That's US, so 500 for us, plus shipping and brokerage. And then you still have to make a new cable, which is probably another 100, 150 bucks here. So just as much messing around as it is to cut this out and throw that in. If you've got an old GM A-body, something like that, or anything with a speedo that just threads in, you can figure out your gear ratio and it probably makes sense to buy one of those, but not for us. So I'm gonna cut that section out, bring that to my neighbor. He's gonna weld that up for me, and then we'll press this on, or just slide this onto the mock output shaft. We'll put a piece of paper or something in there just to give us clearance, and then we've got our speedo figured out. So this is the tailstock out of the truck, and looks like there's big gaps. Really, it kind of angles. The gap is actually really nice here. The aluminum guy would be so happy to weld that in for me. And then that drives on that gear just perfect. So one more thing to figure out. We've got just the sensor and the bell housing for the tack, and I need him to weld the aluminum. What else was aluminum? Oh yeah, the brackets for the front of the engine. So I might drop this off and the bell housing, then the transmission's done. We can bolt that back together, put that together, and then once I get the front pulleys figured out, then he can start welding the front brackets for that. So very nice. Here we go. So the engine is basically where I want it. We can still move it a little bit. I haven't made my mounts yet because I got to figure out where this transmission is going to sit. Where it's going to sit is going to determine where my speedo is going to come out, whether I got the room to go on the side or whether I got to go on an angle down. I think the tunnel itself is okay, but I think I'm worried that the bottom of the pan kind of spreads out right underneath the tunnel itself, and I think it's going to hit here. So I can't angle it down much farther because I'm going to screw up my drive shaft angle. I don't want to keep going through U-joints. The steering works pretty good, back and forth. I'm not hitting anything, stop to stop. I'm all right. So I don't have the starter in yet. Hopefully I got the clearance for that. Otherwise I might have to do something with his arm, maybe turn it upside down or something.
I don't see that being a huge issue. So now it's just seeing if this transmission will fit. So I got my junk transmission here. Roughly that's where it's gonna fit. Luckily I ate my Wheaties this morning. I see the governor is just gonna clear the firewall here, so that's good. And then this, I might have to massage this a little bit where the shifter goes itself, but I think that's okay. But just from here back, it doesn't fit in between the frame rail. It's not much, about ½ inch on both sides. Good thing it's early in the morning. I can still lift trainings over my head. I gotta take a look and see exactly if this is a wide frame, if this is 2 pieces, or if this is 1 piece. Yeah, this is hollow. That's 1 piece. So, I can't in good conscience beat it. So we're gonna cut this piece out. We're gonna bend a nice piece to go around, make it kind of smooth because your foot is right there. One for the driver, one for the passenger. And then we're just gonna curl it in almost flush with the inside here, and then paint it and do it right, even though it will take probably 4 or 5 hours instead of 20 minutes. But I'm sure the owner would appreciate that. Here we go. So, I got the transmission in, also have the starter in, and unfortunately that idler arm does hit the starter and the bell housing there actually. I've probably about 3/4 of my steering, still got about 25% to go. So I'm gonna raise the engine up a bit higher. We got lots of room on top of the transmission yet, and I just gotta cut the hole in the floor a bit higher yet, and then see how high we can actually go. I don't wanna mess with that idler. I thought about turning it upside down, but then I'm just gonna hit right here anyway, so I'm not gaining anything. I guess only gaining if I wanna turn left. It's almost underneath it by about maybe ½ inch. I'm sure I can gain 3/4 of an inch yet, maybe even a full inch, and then we'll see what happens here, how far I gotta go. Doesn't really hurt anything to have the engine off center either, to have it slightly more to the left. I've got the room going left, and that'll give me more room for the exhaust as well. So right there is where my wastegate's gonna go. I'm gonna dump the wastegate off of in between the left and right bank, and because they're gonna be connected at the top there, it shouldn't matter, and then double the exhaust back to come through this slot right underneath the manifold there on top of the mount. So for now, I guess we'll lift it up yet. I gotta take the transmission out again, notch the floor, grab the forklift, pick up on the engine a bit, see how high we gotta go, and then I should be able to make my mounts. So here we go. So working on the engine here, I had to cut this little noob off because it was hitting the power steering pump, and then these are the mounts. The mount is gonna sit kind of right here, but this gets in the way of the AC compressor, moving it forward, and the frame sits right here. So it's not ideal because it's pretty well in the middle of the engine, but it should be all right. A lot of weight on the transmission holding it back too. So I'm gonna take the engine mounts off and just put the engine on it to see how much those compress, because there's nothing worse than a stack of washers this thick underneath the in between the plate and that mount.
4 1/8 no load.
3 3/4 naked engine on it. So I made the mounts. It's all sitting in there by itself now, but I don't like how much those are actually moving, if you can see that. So what I'm gonna do is just take it off again and just cut it, and then cut a little triangle out and just tip these plates a bit and put make the mounts more on an angle rather than straight up and down, because right now I'm getting wiggling this way. So get the right angle, and I actually have about a ½ inch that I can actually drop it down to yet, which would actually make it fit a little nicer yet. So back up she goes, and I'll try again. On the mounts here on a Mercedes, you can tell I've got them on a bit more of an angle now. Let's see. Yeah, there they are, pointing more towards the engine. It's much more solid. I got just enough of a gap right there between the steering motor and the bell housing, and then this is all the way left, and my idler arm there is just missing the starter. I got to put that custom Allen bolt in there to drop that in, and I've got lots of room for a wastegate and exhaust there. So bell housing fits nicely. I have to trim that a little bit more for the transmission itself, but very happy with where this is going. I might even actually try to slide the tranny over just a hair to the left. And I did tilt the engine just slightly to raise it up for that idler arm. Don't tell the owner, and I won't either. You won't actually notice it. It's just a hair. Probably about maybe 1/4 inch to maybe 1/2 inch there. You can just see it off plane there, but there's nothing wrong with that. Promise. So we'll start building the exhaust, and because this is actually where this transmission is gonna sit for good now. No more. I'm done with mounts in and out. So we'll drop it down. We'll start building the exhaust on our little test engine there, and I gotta run to town, grab some more 3-inch tubing or 3.5, and yeah, here we go.
I think, yeah, so I angle that one, I'm ready to go. This one kind of like that. And then clear the bell housing. I gotta go down as low as I can this way, so that the wastegate goes right here, and the other exhaust is going to come right here, and then I think we'll have to go there, but I think closer that way. I might have to put the coils in a whole new spot. Okay, you got a Sharpie? Go get a Sharpie. Go!
You have.
You right?
Saw one.
Cut it right there, and then flare it to there. You're right on top of the exhaust. We'll stay right on top. Perfect. Yeah, that'll be enough. And then that. Yeah. I think that'll work. Okay.
That's not. Oh, that's not what we're doing here.
Goofing off. Hey, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, because you never know what you're going to see next week on DeBoss Garage. If you like what you see, there's a lot of stuff happening to help support the channel. And remember, if you're not filthy, you're not rich.